Good evening, everyone. We are so pleased to have this activity today about the first international webinar on publishing in high-impact journals, barriers and solutions for non-native English researchers. Glad to be among our institutions to talk about the publishing process in English languages with most recognizable and famous academics. Welcome to the conference chair, Dr. Salem and Dr. Hanan Kichou, to whom I give the mic for the to continue the opening ceremony. The floor is yours, Dr. Salem.
Thank you very much, Dr. Aish. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Good afternoon and a very big welcome to you all to our today's webinar, which is about the challenges that non-native researchers encounter while publishing in high-quality journals and some suggested solutions for them. First, I'd like to thank the Democratic Arabic Center for giving us the opportunity to meet today and discuss this interesting topic for all of us. I'd like also to thank Dr. Hanan Kichou for collaborating in chairing and organizing this webinar. So Dr. Hanan is an enthusiastic associate professor of higher education in departments of English language and literature at Mohammed Lamine Dabaghi Institute University in Algeria. For more than 12 years, she received her PhD in applied linguistics and foreign language teaching from the same university. Her primary research areas of interest include academic writing, genre and discourse analysis, English for research and publication, language planning and policy, and technology integration in learning. She has moderated and participated in many national and international conferences. Of course, with us, forgetting the big contribution of our lovely moderator, Dr. Amira Benabdelkader, who has been a senior lecturer and researcher at the University for Elementary Constantine I since December 2020, and the director of the American Corner Constantine since September 2022. She holds a PhD in modern languages and applied linguistics from the University of Southampton in the UK. She's organized and participated in conferences and other academic events in the UK, US, Algeria, Pakistan, Mexico. She's also a reviewer in the Journal of Languages and in the Eurocall conference. Her research interests are intercultural communication, culture negotiation, lingua franca communication, online language learning, and English as a medium of instruction. Massive thanks also go to the speakers who've kindly accepted to join us and share with us their expertise and experiences of the topic. So we have Professor Nadia Idri from Bijaya University in Algeria, who's going to talk about making impact through scholarly publishing, focus on journal selection. And we have Dr. Salim Bouharer from City 2 University in Algeria, who's going to give talk on getting published, reflections on his journey. We have Dr. Hana Bouharer from Higher Institute of Tobruk in Libya, who's going to give a talk on skills of dealing with foreign references. And we have Dr. Mustafa Amrat from the University of Biskra in Algeria, who's going to talk about navigating the publication process in a Scopus indexed journal, insights from his personal experience. And then we have Dr. Yara Shukri from Port Said University in Egypt, who's going to give a talk on two heads are better than one. Why peer feedback in research writing groups matter. And finally, Dr. Hanan Kichou and I will close the webinar with some general comments and remarks. Of course, a huge thank you to all the attendees who kindly joined us today. So if you have any questions, you can just raise your hands or write your questions in the chat box. Yeah, so good luck to all of us. And now I give the floor to Dr. Hanan Kichou.
Thank you so much, Dr. Salem Sihem. So, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, wassalatu wassalam ala ashraf al-mursaleen. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. So I hope you're all doing great. It's a particular pleasure for me and for Dr. Sihem Salem to organize this interesting event, hopefully interesting event. and to meet our speakers, okay, from different universities in the world, who are going to be presenting today, as Dr. Salem has just mentioned, on publishing in high impact journals, barriers and solutions to non-native researchers. So why this subject? So first things first, so this is a subject of high interest, like to me and to my colleague and friend, Dr. Salem Sihem. And second, it's a subject that concerns, I believe, most PhD students and teachers, researchers, I would say. But it's no doubt that researchers, whether they are PhD students or teachers, aspire to publish their works internationally and to be cited. So it's every scholar's dream, I believe, to have a substantial track record of publication. So the truth is, however, many scholars encounter numerous barriers, like Dr. Sihem has just mentioned, and difficulties in the process of international publication. It has become increasingly difficult to publish in top refereed scholarly journals, especially for what we call EAL, or English as an additional language writers and researchers. So publishing for these scholars can be intimidating, and at times, I would say, intimidating experience filled with anxiety and apprehension. So barriers can be, of course, or can range between linguistic, cultural, economic, and social. And I believe our dear guests will elaborate on this. So the major impetus, I would say, for most of us as teachers and researchers for publishing internationally is that it's mostly it's not a matter of choice, I would say, but because we have to. It's a requirement of the job, as we said. So it's like to retain a position. Also, we publish to communicate our research findings and give recognition in the field and to be cited. So in today's webinar, inshallah, we will attempt to answer some of the questions to demystify the process of successful publishing. And some of the questions that we hope we can answer is how to become a prolific scholar. What's the secret of success? Okay, these are my own questions, I would say. Okay, they are my own, and I believe they are the questions of most of the attendees today. So is it due to extraordinary high level of intelligence, or it's a matter of long hours of hard work? So that's another question or query I have. So what are exactly the barriers and what are the possible solutions? So some of our guests will hopefully answer these questions as they draw on their personal experiences, okay, in publication of their works, definitely in numerous scholarly prestigious journals and books. So they may provide us with useful tips and advice, hopefully. So without any further ado, I give the word to Dr. Amira. Okay, so back to you. Thank you so much, everyone, and best of luck. Thank you.
Well, hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Sihem and Salem, for the introduction. It seems like it's going to be a very interesting event indeed. So here I am going to present our first speaker, who is Professor Nadia Idri-Ahwari. Her topic is about making impact through scholarly publishing focus on journal selection. Professor Nadia Idri-Ahwari is a professor with 18 years of experience at Bijaya University and a project manager of 3 ENL plus pioneers of English teaching, MOOC design and delivery for higher education instructors at the Ministry of Higher Education and Scientific Research, Algeria. Nadia is also the project manager of teaching English at Bijaya University for university teachers. She has been working to develop EMP Bijaya, English for medical purposes, in the Faculty of Medicine at Bijaya University since 2021. Nadia has been working as a translator of all types of documents, Arabic, French, English, in the Directorate of University and Research Partnership, Ministry of Higher Education and Scientific Research, Algeria, and in charge of the Translation Bureau, Arabic English, in the Global Institute of Arabic Renewal in Spain. She has many publications, nationally and internationally, more than 60, and a rich contribution in many national and international conferences. In her university, she has been an active participant in most pedagogic and scientific tasks, like teacher development and evaluation, doctoral training and mentoring, PRFU projects, conference chairing, a member of the Quality Assurance Cell of University, a member of the Council of Ethics and the Ontology of the University profession, a member of the Cellule d'accompagnement de sensibilisation, d'appui et de médiation, CASAM, the founder and editor-in-chief of the Journal of Studies in Language, Culture and Society, GSLCS. So now I'm giving the floor to Professor Nadia Idri Ahwari to kindly talk about her topic. The floor is yours, Professor.
Thank you very much, dear colleagues, and thank you for this kind invitation and this important choice of the topic, which is up to date and at the heart of the discussion of scholars and even doctoral students. So I'm glad to share my experience in publication and editing as an editor-in-chief as well. So I would like just to share my screen in order to just guide you and help you to follow my speech. So would you just tell me whether it works?
You can click on share screen or in French, partager l'écran.
Yes. So now just let me know if you see my screen. I can't find it out. Do you see my screen now?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Please, you can click on the share screen. Many windows will appear. Many windows will appear. So you choose the window in which you have the presentation. Click on it and it will be affixed on the screen.
Just a minute.
On mobile, it's quite complicated, I think.
Yes, it's a mobile. That's right. Because my
you can send it to us, and we'll share it.
Okay, it's already open on my mobile. So today I'm trying to use my mobile just to avoid noise in my desk. People around. So to whom shall I send the document?
You can send it to the chat box or send it to Sihem, and she will get Dr. Sihem, and Dr. Sihem will send it to us.
Sihem, may I have your email, or what shall I?
Yeah, sure. I'll give it to you.
I'm sorry for this inconvenience anyway.
No, that's very okay.
Just a minute, I will send it right away.
So in the meantime, I'd like to raise to the attention of our plenary speakers that the presentation will be for about 15 minutes, and then the other 15 minutes will be for questions. So please do your best to finish in 15 minutes so that we have a rich discussion after each presentation.
It's coming back to your email. Check, please.
I am checking, but still not received.
So in the meantime, I do not like minutes are really so important to say. So why
Yes, I
I
got
have
it.
chosen this topic, because I guess through my experience as doctoral student years ago, we have not been well informed about publication. So we struggled a lot as students to know where to publish and how to publish. The only publication at that time possible for us was just to find a national journal. And at that time, there was no list to know which journal is accepted to defend doctoral thesis, etc. So my personal experience was a bit difficult to manage, because I published many papers at that time, but all papers were rejected by the council, just saying that this journal does not meet the requirements of the council. Years later, the Ministry of Higher Education started to opt for the categorization of the journals, and the ministry created a C category just for doctoral students, and maybe for the disciplines of the arts and the humanities, which is not existent in any other country in the world. But this is just a national decision in order to help categories of students that face problems in their councils. Of course, this experience of publication helped me a lot in getting knowledge and making research about what happens in the world. Of course, after defending my PhD and started working as for my accreditation, so I worked with international journals as well. And believe me, that the first paper I published in an international journal is now the most cited one, and it was rejected by the council at that time. And I started working as well with other journals. Among the journals, I have the Arab World English Journal, which is now Web of Science indexed. But when I started working with them, it was just at its beginnings, and I acted as a reviewer, and then I even worked with the editor-in-chief, Professor Khair Zubaydi, with whom I'm all the time in contact. Of course, my work with this journal permitted me to succeed a bit in knowing what happens in the world. The idea of creating my own journal started to flourish in my mind, and I created JSLCS, the Journal of Studies in Language, Culture and Society, in 2018. And alhamdulillah, now it is indexed Erich Plus just after 4 years of its existence. So it's now a B category, internationally speaking. So let's go to the first slide of my presentation, if you can help, please. Of course, I'm not going to read things, but just helping the audience to follow my ideas. So can you please go to the front page of my presentation in order to get started with this topic. So as you see that I've seen that you had problem dealing with the peer review project, but peer review project means projet de recherche de formation universitaire in French. And this means that the ministry is encouraging people to work on projects, and the projects are expertised by many experts and accepted. Their duration is 3 to 4 years, where we need to train doctoral students to involve them in the research career and the research life. So of course, when dealing with publication, and this is very important aspect for any researcher, so without publication, we cannot exist in academia. And our identity is dependent on the principle of visibility and metrics. The journals also are evaluated. So the evaluation and ranking principles are everywhere in our life as academia, as a researcher, as a journal, as an institution. And this is what I'm going to show. So making an impact through scholarly publishing for the researcher is quite important. But it's not only the idea of publishing, but it's also the idea of making impact among the peers that share the same field of interest as us. So for publication in reputed journals, this can have impact on researchers' careers in several ways. So the researcher, when publishing, he should pay attention to the principle of being visible and recognized, visible through citations and metrics, but recognized via the where to publish and the journals in which he should publish in order to be recognized as a reputed scholar. And this can come later on to the number of publications, the H index and the I index later on. Of course, when dealing with publication in reputed journals, we can speak about the advancement in our career. Otherwise, we can be stagnant and fossilized in just one level. Funding opportunities as well. Many scholars do not know how important this aspect is. Of course, most of our teachers, researchers, just rely on a number of easy ways of data collection because of funding opportunities problems. Sometimes we need to make, for example, surveys. We find that many of us publish papers, just we count on a number of 100 participants. But if we compare our surveys with international surveys, I personally participated with one of the, with the Cactus Foundation. More than 1,300 people participated in the survey. We do not talk about 100, but 1,300, 3,000, 7,000. So when we deal with such kind of huge surveys or experiments, for example, so sometimes we need funded opportunities. Of course, we also need to work on networking. International networking is quite important because we can help each other with publication opportunities and we can also help each other in citation. We need to make some kind of marketing of our names. And finally, reputation, because a researcher should be really a reputed scholar through the number of citations, the quality of publications, and the plagiarism-free work. And of course, details are included in this slide. So can you please move to the second, to the next? Of course, here, go ahead, 4 times. So for the journal metrics, I'm not going to explain what is meant by journal metrics. It's just to help the maybe the novice scholars to think that before ever trying to publish in an internationally high impact journal, you can just make some research about the impact factor of the journal, the article influence score, or what we call the AIS, the eager factor, and the SGR, Simago Journal rank. The ranking of the journals is quite important. Please go ahead. Next slide, please, because I would like to respect time. That's why I'm not explaining so much. Next slide, please. Please. In the next slide, I try to explain or to give just an example of the arts and humanities most reputed journals based on impact factors according to the journal citation reports of 2021, which is the latest, until now this is latest ranking. And you can see that these are the most maybe cited journals or the high impact factor journals in the arts and humanities. And I guess that we share this theme because we are from the English specialty, applied linguistics, literature, and whatever the specialty is, but that's why I have given examples of these journals. So go ahead, please. Next slide, please. Of course, I'm not going to read because this is just another, please go back. It's just to say a word about this. Yeah, And also, no, the previous one, please. And of course, I have given an example about the most ranked journals in the humanities, but also a novice researcher should find or use sources first from these great publishers like Elsevier, Springer Nature, Wiley, Taylor and Francis, Oxford University Press, Cambridge University Press, and many others. So these are also the highly ranked publishers. So we have the journals ranking and the publishers ranking. Go ahead, please. So before ever starting thinking about publishing in highly reputed journals, we need first to be consumers of knowledge, and we consume from these highly ranked journals and highly ranking publishers before thinking of publishing. So when we have this culture of reading from reputed journals and reputed scholars and reputed publishers, we will be positively influenced, and we will also think to publish, why not, in these highly ranked journals one day. Go ahead, please. Please go ahead. And of course, because in an Algerian context, I thought to deal with the Algerian SciSit and University ranking, the latest one, which is 2023, just focus on these colored words. So we have words like the age index, I index, and you see that we focus on the 6 years. When we deal with 6 years, it means even within your publications, you are all the time asked to give publications, your 5 years publications, for example. So go ahead, please, in order to just mention some of the authors. Here, I try to make some research about the highly ranked scholars, Algerian scholars in the world according to the World Scientific Rankings 2023. And here we have these three first authors. Come again, please. So we have these two, and if we go to their Google Scholar account, you see the number of citations for Abdelwahid Tunsi, for example, from Sidi Bel Abbas. You have this huge number of citations. According to the number of citations, the metrics will calculate the age index and then the I index. Of course, our reputation as scholars should be based on the age index and I index. And you can see doctors or Professor Zubaydah Zaidi, peace be upon her, because she was one of the victims of the COVID-19. So she is ranked second, nationally speaking. And just after, so you can go to the next slide, I've tried also to show you the Béjaïa scientists and university rankings. And here I've just taken to example. The first one is Khudir Madani. And of course, Khudir Madani was also one of the winners of the Scopus Award just in 2022, the end of the year of 2022. So come again, please. The next slide. And here you see that we always go back to the citations and the Google Scholar account. My point here is that when you start your life as a researcher, even at your first year doctoral year training, you need to create your Google Scholar, your ORCID number, and you need to have many other platforms. You need to really have accounts in all the publishing houses and the great publishers in the world in order to be first up to date and to create your Google Scholar and start your metrics right from your being as a student and have an influence. You need to look at the people who really succeeded their reputation and made an impact in their field of interest. Next slide, please. Trying to respect time. I would like to give you some indicators and ways for the ARWU, and this is a reference from an official document from the Ministry of Higher Education in Algeria that was sent to me as part of my work as a translator for 8 months. So you need to have a look only at the percentages we have at the end here. Of course, for the research output, we have 20% for papers published in Nature and Science. This is not, of course, our field, but you see, just for this, we have 20%. And papers indexed in Science Citation Index Expanded and Social Science Citation Index, 20%. So the publication and the output are related to also the university's rankings. So people like Khadir Madani in Béjaïa, for example, if we remove his name or if he moves from Béjaïa to another university, our ranking will collapse. It means that it's extremely important to have a high impact factor as also authors in order to contribute in our universities and institutions ranking worldwide. Come again, please. Again, within the same document. So you see that this includes all the elements related to rankings. But I would like to invite you, in order to talk about our subject, to citation or research influence at the end of the first column. Our research influence indicators looks at universities' role in spreading new knowledge and ideas. And this is our main aim behind publication and making impact in our research. And citations, 30%. So you see that we examine research influence by capturing the average number of times at universities published work is cited by scholars globally. This year, the biometrics data supplier Elsevier examined more than 108 million citations to 14.4 million journal articles, article reviews, conference procedures, books, and book chapters published over 5 years. This is a key word, the last 5 years of your life. All the time, we do not need the whole CV of your life. Whenever you need you to give a summary of your research life or CV or resume. So what you need to do is to give the 5 years publication, the last publication of the 5 years. So this means that as a researcher, you do not need to stop publication, because each time, if there is any position, they ask you to give them the number and the publications of the 5 last years to see whether you are active, where do you publish, are you still working hard, do you still have impact, etc. And even when you go to the Google Scholar, so you have in your Google Scholar citations, all the citations, and you have the citations of the last 5 years. And this is important. So come again to the next slide. Of course, focusing on journal selection highlights the importance of selecting the right journal for publication or publishing your research work. And choosing a reputable and high impact journal can increase the author's visibility, credibility, and impact of the researcher's work, leading to career advancement and recognition. Finally, one should pay attention to predatory publishers and journals that show high impact factor. This should be a topic of another presentation I would like to make one day, because there are some tips to detect whether the journal is predatory or not. I'm not talking about the Algerian context, because in the Ministry of Higher Education in Algeria, we have an updated document every year, although the document was criticized by many responsible scholars because it does not include all the predatory journals and publishers, and is not updating all the newly indexed journals, but still we can at least find thousands and thousands of journals upon which we can rely and which are not predatory. And by being strategic and thoughtful is selecting a junior researcher can increase the likelihood of making significant impact in their field. And that's the idea behind research. I start by being a consumer of knowledge, but the idea is I need to be a producer of knowledge later on. How to be a producer of knowledge? I consume high quality knowledge, which is this published work in reputed journals by reputed scholars and by reputed publishers. But I would like also to achieve this by publishing in such reputed journals. Go ahead, please. Here you need to click many times in order to finish our document. Increasing the visibility of a research paper. Of course, this diagram was part of the speech I have already given in collaboration with Professor Khairi Al-Ubaidi from the USA and the editor-in-chief of Journal of Studies of Awesh, and Dr. Radia Bugabs. And as you might see, so here you need, we have some elements you need to respect, like sharing your research outputs, create an ORCID number or link, create and keep up to date your CV all the time, and engage in social networking. And finally, blogging and tweeting importance. So marketing your name in order to have impact is quite important. So go ahead, please. Go ahead, please. Final. So in order to conclude, I would like to conclude with the this final quote, which says that the good scientist is the one who can think out of the box, but in order to do so, he or she needs to know what's in the box. So thank you very much for listening, and I hope that I could respect time.
Thank you so much, Professor Nadia, for this very insightful presentation. I really enjoyed listening to you. You covered most of the points that any researcher should aim to acquire really during the research, the academic journey. So now for the audience, do you have any questions for Professor Nadia? So you can either put them on the chat box, or you just come here on on live and ask it.
Okay.
Okay, I think I have the question.
There is one?
I have one, Amira.
Okay, you go. Yes.
Yeah, thank you. So
I have three.
Oh, good. So I just would like to know, what are the qualities of articles accepted by high impact journals? And does the origin of the writer, the country where he came from, the background information of the writers affects the final decision of editors and reviewers in high impact journals? Thank you very much, Professor.
Thank you very much. That's very good question, by the way, because you know that the field of publication is so complex. It's not only sometimes related to the quality of your work. Of course, there are tips we need to respect. Some tips are related to the quality of your references. I expect that a highly impacted journal needs from you also to cite high impact or highly cited authors. When you make your research on Google Scholar, the first thing, how many times cited, is all the time included in just within the search box. There is also another thing, which is, I'm sorry to say this, but I attended a conference with the founder of Douage. The founder of Douage, do you know Douage? Douage is it's an indexation platform for open access journals. And he created this platform, according to him, in order just to protect open access journals. There is a war, in a way, between publishers. There is also what we call dominance from the great publishers. If we take some publishers, I do not like to cite the name of a publisher, but there is kind of monopoly. When Algerians or Tunisian or Egyptian you are, or Libyan, because these are the speakers we have today, sometimes it's just they Google your name from where you are. I'm sorry to say this, it's not me. The founder of Douaj told us that he created this to protect all countries of the world and all journals of the world. One also of the Algerian editors who is now in the UK, when I was a student, I asked him, please tell me, professor, on which basis you publish papers? He said, the first thing we do is Google the name of the author. So if we Google Scholar, the name of the author, that's why my presentation is based on many of experiences and meeting people from the publishing world. And I would like also to advise people, for example, in the Web of Science and Scopus, you have thousands of journals. Try to find a journal, maybe not British, not maybe from Europe or the US sometimes, in order to avoid this kind of pressure. It means they may weigh you according to the region from as a second rank generation or a region. This exists because this is human. Of course, I'm collaborating with one of my colleagues in Arabia Saudi for now many months. And we are working on papers in order just to publish them in Web of Science. One of the recommendations this person gave me, please try to work on a journal from Web of Science, which is not an emerging journal first, but not from Europe, because we might be just rejected because of this, not because of the the quality of the paper. Many of the Web of Science and Scopus journals just have 10% of acceptance rate. You imagine the percentage of rejection. So in order to avoid the rejection, just because you are Algerian or Libyan or Egyptian, try to find journals. I helped one of the doctors here from the medicine faculty to find a journal. What I did, I tried to find a journal from Scopus, the Egyptian journal of pediatrics, for example, something like that. It's free because it is sponsored by a government or an association. So there are tips to help you to choose the journals which are free of charge. It is important. They are indexed as Scopus or Web of Science. But at the same time, you might not be rejected because you are not European. One of the problems I face, because I've been working with the Faculty of Medicine for 2 years now, and I discussed with many of the doctors, one day there was a scandal in UK because one of the most reputed journals in the medical sciences published a work. The same week it was really maybe a problem in the medicine life because the results were wrong. Because it was a British person, they did not maybe care about the maybe checking the results. But if it were not a British person, so it could have caused more problems. The journal just removed the paper, but without saying anything. Imagine if the paper was published by somebody from Africa or Asia. So this is the point I would like to say. So your question was really sensitive, and I did not want to make a conclusion about what happens, but I have tried to give some examples from the experiences I lived with colleagues from different specialties. We cannot accuse people, but I attended many conferences with really publishers and platform creators, and even teacher researchers from many disciplines because I help them in the translation and proofreading of papers and the publication process at the same time. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your answer. I would like also to add, you mentioned lots of criteria in your presentation that would perhaps help in changing the way the publisher or the editor would look to our affiliation. When you said about visibility, there are different ways to increase our visibility and to show other scholars and editors that we are still working, we keep working, we are updating our knowledge, we are participating in conferences, we are publishing, and there are lots of ways now because of thanks to the internet now. Is there any other question? Well, I do have one. So my experience here in Algeria is just like 2 years and few months. And what I hear from my colleagues, most of them, is that it's better to publish in a local journal. I will get it published in 3 months, 4 months, instead of opting for an international one and waiting for 1 year and 2 years. And then they say, oh, when I asked them, why don't you opt for, since now you are a researcher, you are no more a PhD student, so you have plenty of time to wait and work on other papers, while the other one is getting published. So they were like, they scared us. This is the answer I got. They scared us. The international journals, here they got a reputation that an Algerian scholar can never meet the, let's say, their criteria. So it's better to be in the safe zone and just publish in the local journals and let my CV get maybe richer. And this is the point. So in your opinion, how to assert a culture of publishing beyond the local context?
You know, each question of yours is a conference by itself. Believe me. I am one of the, maybe the protectors of what you are saying. And I'm trying to monitor many of my colleagues. After getting my professorship 2 years ago, and I was ranked the first at the national level, because of this logic that I need to publish, not in order not to perish. One of the, I said, the most cited paper in my works was just published in the first issue of an African journal. It was just because I had my magister work and tried to summarize it as a student and put it in a journal, and it was published by people I was citing it. The idea is when you are a student, do not think about whether it is national or international, try to publish. When you get the culture of publication, of course, the more you work in your papers, the more maybe mastery of academic writing you'll have. When I read my first papers, I just sometimes say, oh, I was so young and I detect many things I do not like, but it was about 20 years ago. You see? So that's the idea. Yes, in Algeria, there is a problem of quality of publication, not for all people. The problem is in just having this idea of just the promotion. I need one article to have my PhD. So I need to publish it in a C journal. This is the easiest way. And in our journal, so if I can have maybe a journal that publishes in just a few months, why not? So I will get my diploma and that's all. The idea is to change things in the doctoral training. And believe me, this is what I do with my students. When I monitor my doctoral students in my courses and in my supervision, I tell them, try to publish whatever you are, because you need to have a rich resume as a DR comes within with your diploma. I cannot be a doctor with one article and 2 scientific presentations. I need to have at least 1 page full of papers and presentations. So the logic is to make the learner, doctor students, aware that your life is half pedagogic, because teacher, and half researcher, which is the second part of your professional position. We are teachers, researchers. I do not
Definitely.
like the university to be a big high school. if we change this in the life of the students, we need to make impact. And before starting this conference, I was just discussing with my husband, who is also from sociology and university teacher as well. I told him, I'm happy that this new generation is working with international institutions and trying to make webinars and conferences with reputed scholars and with institutions like yours. And we feel that there is change, there is hope. In the past, this was not existent. This topic was never at the heart of the discussion, our trainings when we were students. We did not even know that there is APA style, Chicago style, Harvard style, MLA style. And we were mixing many styles at the same time because we were taught by many teachers, and each teacher comes with a referencing style. But so we try to work by our own. So changing the culture should come step by step. But with people, with our work all together, we can change things. And this is what I'm trying to do, to make impact to social media. I'm so active in social media, just to give positive impact to future generations. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much for your answer, really. Thank you.
Welcome. Any other question? I'm ready for any kind of question.
Yeah,
because this is my cup of tea anyway.
Amira.
It's my cup of tea.
Yes, go ahead,
I
please.
have a question.
Go ahead, Hanan.
A quick question, but I don't know. It has to do with the feminine side, like women as researcher, because Professor Idri is, mashallah, she's a mom, I think, of 3 or 4 kids. The last time we met, it was like 3 kids or something.
4 children.
Very, very.
Mashallah, mashallah. So I do respect Professor Idri, everything you said about having an impact, okay, a reputation as a scholar. But my question really is how to strike a balance between being like a wife, a mom, and a scholar who has to publish and have an impact. So how can I strike that balance? I mean, for me, it's so tough.
My kids are trying to come to my room since the morning because they know that I'm doing something, by the way, at this moment, because it's a weekend. What I do generally, of course, there is what we call in sociological sciences, eye sealing. The eye sealing is part of our life, of course. But you remember my piece of advice in 2009?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, we need to make a balance. And of course, I'm writing a chapter which will be published about my women empowerment and my life. It's an autobiographic chapter for ELT, Empowered Women in the World by TESOL America. It will be published in June, and its aim is to positively impact women in the world that we can succeed our life. I all the time say, I am a mother. When the doctor students, I got married, I'm married too. I got a child, I have 4 children. So all the time, I'm sick, I have a chronic illness, but I do my job and I try to go ahead because life is all the time going ahead. So please do not give prejudices. Try to make a balance between your family, your children, and your professional life. That's important. I do not have maybe the recipe for that because this is me. I love work and I love my profession. That's all.
May Allah protect you, Professor. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm really happy to share this short experience with me. And thank you for giving me all this time. I'm really happy for that.
Thank you so much.
Very inspiring experience indeed, Dr. Idri, Professor Idri.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I have another question if we don't receive any from the audience. I do have another one. So in your opinion, why are local journals not attempting to join international journals, let's say, to make a joint special issue, let's say, about something? According to my experience, like the very small experience in academia, the context of Algeria is not really known elsewhere just because we publish locally.
Of course, this is also an important question. Your questions stem from ignorance of what happens in the ministry and the ASGP, etc. The ministry is trying anyway to work towards this project, because in order to follow international journal, we need to be indexed. Editors-in-chief chiefs in Algeria. We have more than 750 journals in Algeria on ASGP. Okay, you can see the huge number of journals. Editors-in-chief are working as volunteers. We are not paid. Reviewers are not paid. Associate editors are not paid, and secretaries are not paid. So now people are trying to understand the criteria of journal selection. When you go to SGP, we have a document for selection, which permits the journal to go to the C category. And for me, when I created the journal, I created it according to my experience with the Arab World English Journal. At that time, I had no idea about what ASGP is because it was just newly born. I created the journal in 2018, and the ASGP was created in 2017 in order to accompany the journals. Now, thanks to my experience also with Professor Rahmi Ghania in the Journal of Translation and Languages in Oran too, that I also could join the ASGP and understand the selection criteria. And then, according to my experience, it's not the ASGP that we need to take as a criterion, but the indexing services. Indexing services that may push you to be indexed, like the Erech Plus Open Edition. These two are accepted by the Algerian ministry in order to be selected as a B journal. My journal has been accepted in Erech Plus, but in the ministry, it is not yet B in the platform, but internationally it is. You see the difference of timing, because updating the list takes time. But the idea of Scopus now, Mr. Harik told me, now you need to go to Scopus. But believe me, to go to Scopus, you need to pay. Who will pay for that? To be in the Web of Science or Elsevier, you need to pay. So that's why publishing in reputed journals needs money and needs funding. And I talked about this, about funding opportunities. You need, in your acknowledgement, in your article, to put the financial, the DJSDT of Algeria, for example, you need to mention it in acknowledgements. If you publish in a reputed journal, class A, we have A+, A, and there is very good information for some countries, among which we have Algeria, that Nature Plus or Nature is now accepting publication from some countries, among which we have Algeria, for free. It's new now. Now it's just a month ago that Nature is accepting to publish for free. So just write a good paper and put it in Nature, and you will receive funding from the ministry for the publication of your paper. So it's really a long process, but we are struggling. And thanks God that in PJR, for example, we have 4 journals, 3 journals. In just our faculty, you have 2 journals. Mine is the third to be in Erech Plus. And the next step would be Scopus. In PJR, we have 4 in Erech Plus. But other journals need to follow. Now the ministry created the Visibility Committee in order to help universities to be visible. How can we be visible if we do not have the 30% of the publication I have talked about? Thank you.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you so much. Well, if we don't have any questions, I will move to the next speaker. Thank you again, Professor Nadia Idri, for your presentation and answers. Thank you for being so generous with us.
You're welcome. That's my duty. Thank you very much.
So now we move to our next speaker, who is Dr. Salem Bouhrar. He's going to talk about getting published, reflections on my journey. Salem Bouhrar is an assistant professor at City of University, He holds a PhD in applied linguistics from the University of Middlesex, UK. Middlesex, UK. He participated in national and international conferences in Algeria, Colombia, Saudi Arabia, UAE, and UK. His research interests include culture and idioms, language planning and policy, language and politics, critical pedagogy, and critical theory in language policy. He has published researches on communicative approach, idioms, understanding and teaching, religion and culture, language planning and policy in Algeria and Arab world. He co-authored the book of Algerian Languages in Education, Conflicts and Reconciliation. He's also a reviewer in Social Semiotics and Frontiers Psychology journals and an editor of a special issue. Well, Salim, you have the floor to talk about getting published.
Thank you, Amira. Thank you. I think you will have to bear with the low quality of my sound and the video. And I'm not quite sure if this is okay.
It is intelligible, so it's great.
Okay, otherwise I'll have to perhaps shut down the camera and talk to you throughout another mic. But
it's going good.
Okay, I'll share the screen. Okay. Good. Okay, so thank you for having me. My name is Salem Sihem. I'm an associate professor at City University, Nigeria. I'm specialized in language policy and planning, language and politics, and neoliberalism, and cultural and linguistic imperialism, and critical pedagogy. So today we'll be talking about my research journey through perhaps 3 years of doing research, a very short time, compared to the Professor Nadia Idri. But I will try to be very simple. I will try to be very concise and precise because of the time limitation. So I'll be talking about certain key features that perhaps would allow you to publish in high reputed publishing houses. So we'll be talking about the quality feature. I'll be discussing relevance, and I will be also talking about the contribution, which is a major feature. I'll also talk about the empirical versus theory-based in terms of practicality of research. I'll finish by the publications that I have so far throughout the 3 years of doing research. Sorry. So, quality. I'd like to talk to you through the process of getting your product, whether a book proposal, whether an edited book proposal, whether manuscripts into high impact journals or high reputed journals. And the first thing that the editor-in-chief will do, they will run an initial judgment based on which they will check the quality of writing. They will also check the tone of the arguments throughout the paper, of course. And most importantly, they will check the content-based referencing style or system, meaning that all the discussed referencing has to be from the well-reputed journals, in the sense that you have to avoid to some extent the broad scope journals, filled non-specific journals, and with all due respect to the editors and reviewers in those journals that I will mention. For example, the Journal of Humanities or the Journal of Social Sciences, and that's something you don't want really to include within the citation of your manuscripts. Though this is a bone of contention, feel free to disagree, and we have all the rights to disagree, because perhaps I'm saying something that is of controversial discussion that's perhaps we'll discuss after we finish the presentation in the question time. One way to distinguish between what is high quality and what is not is you have to know the world famous publishing houses that I've just included here, perhaps 12 of them. The first one is Springer, the well famous, well-known one, the German one. Second one is Elsevier, the Dutch one located in Amsterdam with a headquarters. You have also Sage Publishing Company, the American one, Routledge, the oldest ever in the market, the British one, Francis and Taylor. You have Wiley and Blackwell Group, the American one. So tires with different journals in the field. Okay? It's from Switzerland, the Swiss one. Oxford University Press, United Kingdom, Oxford. Cambridge University Press, Cambridge, United Kingdom. You have also Moderator, the German one, also a very famous one. You have John Benjamin's Publishing Company, another Dutch company, Netherlands, located in Netherlands, Amsterdam, with a headquarters. You have also Multilingual Matters in Bristol, United Kingdom, and you have Palgrave Macmillan, London, United Kingdom. I've also included a flyer of my co-authored book on the right-hand side, Algerian Languages in Education, Conflicts and Reconciliation, which I will be talking about the process of publication of the book in a second. 2 years from now, published this with my friend Abdelzak in 2021, approximately 2 years, yes. The second feature is that relevance, and therefore your manuscript, your product, has to be very relevant and scope relatable, field related. And I understand that some authors are not quite sure, okay, of relevance. And one way to do this is to suggest relevance to the editors to some extent. And one way is to contact the editors and tell them, hey, I have got a manuscript or product. Would you be able to have a look at it? And if it suits your scope of research, you can allow it for double reviewing or blind double reviewing. And that's something we did, me and my friend. We first of all contacted Routledge. We filled the book proposal with the principles required, and then we received the rejection, okay, based on the fact that they don't really publish themes within language and politics. And that was a disappointment at first, but then we also contacted Multilingual Matters in Bristol. We filled also the book proposal, they studied the reviewing and said, we're really sorry, we don't really publish topics within language and politics. We then contacted Palgrave Macmillan. They were very happy. They accepted the book proposal. We signed the contract of 17 pages. And then we started the negotiation process, which was very, very challenging. It took up to 2 years. We had to agree on the market. We had to agree on the content-based, setting the concepts, the principles, setting also the standards of the book. And you can imagine how challenging and difficult that was. And some of the questions that I've included here that we had to address, whether in writing, whether in email, whether face-to-face to some extent through Zoom meeting. So, how will your product add to the current theory? And that's for sure contribution. And I can confirm that if you don't have contribution in your product, whether a manuscript that you're going to submit in a journal, or whether a book proposal, edited book proposal, or special issue, if you don't have contribution, it is very, very unlikely to get your products published. And that's something we made sure that it existed throughout our product. Second question, who are the main targeted readerships of your product? We cited the MENA region, North Africa and Middle East, some European countries, learners and teachers of French and English as second and foreign language. We cited also experts. We cited also researchers of language and politics, language and policy and planning to some extent. The last one was how your product's different from the existing product. And in this case, we cited the book of Mohammed bin Rabah, the famous book that talks about Algerian language planning and policy. We said that perhaps bin Rabah did not cover the period between 2010 and 2020, and we did in our book. Perhaps bin Rabah did not talk about the global political dynamics of the Algerian society, and we did. That's something we did. And also, perhaps to some extent in his book, he did not cover extensively, exclusively, and perhaps more directly the relationship between language policy and politics. And that's something also we covered. So that was something to sell our product, to convince the editorial board that we have got contribution and we succeeded to some extent. The last feature has to do with practicality, and we'd like to draw attention here between the empirical work and the theory work. And my experience, my humble experience, I would say that papers or product or book proposals with empirical work have got more chances to get published than the theory-based. Though don't get me wrong, some journals still accept theory-based, but you can see how challenging to write a paper with theory-based. You can see how challenging to highlight the tone of argument and the tone of contribution in your paper. That's something really, really demands some time and a lot of reading. So for to be very secured and to be on the safe side, you may include empirical work in your product. Perhaps you increase your chances of your paper getting published in very famous reputed journals or / publishing houses. And to some extent also that's something the editor-in-chief would look first. The first glance, they would just look for empiricality or practicality and theory-based, especially if the journal does not really require theory-based. So if you do include empirical work, then perhaps you might bypass the first initial judgment of the editors-in-chief and go to a blind reviewing process. So, yeah. In the last slide, I'll try to keep it short. So this is a very short experience of my research throughout 3 years of being here in Algeria. So, so far I've got a co-authored book with Palgrave Amira that I was just showing you in the second slide. I've got also a paper with Routledge and Francis publishing houses, the Journal of Canon Tissues and Language Planning. I think this is the paper on the right-hand side of the slide, Sustainability and Educational Language Policy in Arab Education, findings from Q Research. That was also co-authored. I've got also a paper with Palgrave Macmillan Journal Higher Education Policy, which we have finished the proofreading. They sent us a link to do the proofreading. We finished the proofreading, and hopefully it will be published in the coming days. The paper also went through a double-blind review. It was accepted. It will appear in the March issue. I'm also an editor in Frontiers in Psychology with a special issue, and some of the colleagues here who are with us now helps with the reviewing process. Just to remember, also an editor of regular papers in Frontiers in Psychology, also a reviewer in Social Semiotic Journal within Routledge and Francis and Taylor. So that's pretty much from me. I tried to be very concise and precise in a very short presentation, very limited time. Thank you for listening. And if there are some questions, I'll be happy to perhaps discuss them or argue about that with them.
Thank you so much, Salem, for this really rich and concise presentation. I will see if there is anyone in the audience who has got a question. Sihem, you're raising your hand.
Yeah,
Would you like to ask a question?
Yes, please. Thanks, Amira. So my first question is, have you received any rejections, and what were the reasons for rejections? My second question is, have you got rejection from one journal, and then when you resubmit it to another journal, you got acceptance? Thank you.
Yes, for the rejections, I think, especially for the book proposal, we had got two rejections, one of them from the Routledge and the other one was from Multilingual Matters in Bristol, United Kingdom. And they did not really specify the rejection purpose because they did not, to some extent, they did not allow the book proposal to go through a blind reviewing process. It was the initial judgment of the editor in theme, not the editorial office editor in theme, because publishing houses have got some kind of themes of publications, and every theme has got one or two editors. We contacted the editor that we thought is perhaps the most fitting into the scope of the book proposal, and the rejection was based on the reason that they don't really consider publications of the relationship between language and policy, and the fact that they had some kind of concerns that the book would not perhaps be of not of value, but would not be of a main interest in some readership areas, especially in Europe. They said that's because it is on Algeria. We don't think, if we accept to publish the book, we don't think it will be selling a lot, okay, in terms of money. And so those are kind of rejections. In terms of papers, I don't think I have, well, I just have two so far. So I've never run across any kind of rejection as far as manuscripts are concerned, but as far as proposals, yes, we've got two so far. Yeah.
Hopefully you won't get any rejection in the future.
Well, I
Even for proposals.
Yeah, I hope.
Thank you so much, Salim. Now we move to Mustafa. You are raising your hand. Would you like to ask a question?
Yes. Excellent presentation, Salim. I just have a question. Since you went through the two processes, publishing a book and publishing a paper, in terms of the review process, which one was harder? What are the differences mainly? What are the differences between the review process of the book and the paper? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mustafa. It's definitely the book one. With the paper, you have to submit, okay, the initial submission, and in some one-year piece of journals, you have to wait up to 1 year to get a response from if your manuscripts goes through the double-blind reviewing, and then the editor-in-chief will share the results with you. That you have a major or minor changes. And then you do them quickly, and that is then they will send you a link for the proofreading, and this will not take up to 2 months of period of time. So I wouldn't say this is easy, but this is mainly the process. It depends from one journal to another. But within the book proposal, it is very, very demanding and challenging. At the same time, we had a rough time of 2 years during the process of edition and amendment, and you can imagine, how challenging that was. And you would receive questions from the editorial board concerning the marketing, concerning the content. You would receive questions from the double-blind review team. You would receive questions from other editors, related editors into the theme, besides your own amendments and additions to the book that you think perhaps some things or sections might be tweaked a little bit or changed to some extent. So it was definitely the book version that was very, very difficult to go through.
It's really impressive that even it took you 2 years to amend, but you still kept on that process of publishing. I remember I was going to publish a chapter in an edited book, and then, like you said, so there is the publisher, or sorry, the editor of the series, like you said, the theme, and there is the editor of the books in the publishing house. So there was a conflict between the editor of the book and the editor of the book series. And then we ended up, so after amending and reaching the end, there was that conflict. And then we had to re-amend based on the reviews of the reviewers of the publisher, the main publisher. So when it reached that stage, I was like, I withdraw my chapter. I'm no more interested in re-amending my chapter because I started hating it. And believe me, since the day I removed it from that book, I stopped reading it. I haven't read it since then. I hated it. I have a chapter ready, but it's on my laptop there. So how did you cope really with that psychological aspect of going through those amendments?
We had two advantages, and perhaps one of them is the most important one. We were in a quarantine period of time, so I didn't have anything to do. I was really squeezed into a corner to do something. I was obliged to. And the second thing is that we signed a contract of 17 pages. That includes all the rights and the duties we need to do, and including the deadlines. So we were under pressure of a deadline. We didn't have any kind of choice. So once you sign a contract, you sign a contract. We were a little bit lucky because we had the book finished to some extent. And those amendments and additions were very difficult, but sometimes you get to sign a contract before you write a book. So you just write a book proposal, you submit to the publishing house, they accept it, and they give you a deadline of 2 or 3 years to finish your book and so on. But it was huge. It was really huge in terms of stress, because at the first place, we were during the coronavirus, but we managed to do this. Also, the positive things, I was not alone. So I had a co-author, and we had to split the work. And that's also something helped a lot. And I could not really imagine myself doing something individually. That's really time consuming. And I don't think perhaps through my abilities, I would perhaps manage to survive the process of editing and amendment and the pressure and the depression along the period of time. But yeah, at the end of the day, we managed. But yeah, it was really difficult.
Great, congrats, really well done. Really well done. Thank you so much, Salim, for sharing with us your experience. It's really valuable for all of us. Thank you. So now I'm moving to Dr. Hannah Bouhlala from Libya to talk about skills of dealing with foreign references. Dr. Hannah is a university faculty member in higher education sector, Libya, a lecturer in accounting, higher and auditing, and head of the Department of Financial and Administrative Sciences at the Institute of Tobruk. She has been teaching in higher education for more than 10 years. She participated in several scientific academic activities and conferences in Libya and the United States, as well as online activities. She is interested in educational issues and working to participate in e-learning. She published some scientific and journalistic articles inside and outside Libya. She is interested in development issues, national and educational issues, charitable and voluntary work. Dr. Hannah, you have the floor. Are you there?
Hi, how are you?
Hi, can you please share your screen?
In fact, today I'm not ready for screen. I'm sorry about that. But I will share my presentation. Start sharing.
Yeah, share your presentation, yes. Thank you.
Yeah. Let me know if you see. Is it appear now? Do you see it?
Not yet. Yes, it's there.
Yeah. First of all, I will thank the Democratic Arabic Center of Germany to invite me to this webinar. Even though I'm a little busy because I just get back to my country last week. I try to do my best. And today we're talking about my topic. It's about the skills of dealing with the foreign reference. I will share my experience about this topic. Especially, I published some. I participate in some conference and I publish some paper with my university, especially with my university. I am happy to share my experience. First of all, let's go to the agenda. First of all, I will give some background, why we have to use foreign references. And after that, the importance of using foreign references and strategy. After that, strategy of using foreign resource or reference. And after that, the skills of dealing with foreign resource. And last, how to deal with foreign resource. Yeah. First of all, let's give a short background. In fact, as we know, there is some measures in science or in most kind of measures. Some of them totally depend in foreign language, like English or French or any other language, or Spanish, and some of them in Arabic and in even Arabic measures. Sometimes we need to use reference from other language because of some reasons. One of them, if we face new issues and we don't find enough resources or references in Arabic, then in this case, we find more resources in other language. So here we have to have skills, especially in the language that related to our area or our measures. For example, for law measures, we find that French language, it's more related to law measures. Even, for example, let's say medical measures also. We can say Germany, for example, English language. So because of that, because those reasons, the researcher and students have to have the other language as a important skill to know how to deal with foreign reference, because now we are not isolated from what happened in the world, in the whole world, and we know as any language has limited resource. Maybe we find other language has, for example, the English language as example. It's considered the first language in science and in different majors. So we find ourselves when we go to this, when we reach to this stage, if we wanted to publish our dissertations or our thesis, then we have to have a language as a more important skill, as a research skills. And as we know, most of, especially in Arab country, many students suffer from the shortage of language in general. Sometimes it's because the policy in some countries, or sometimes shortage from the student themselves, because now nowadays my important recommendation. I recommend every student when they reach to university stage, they have to gain and be more professional in at least 2 or more language, because they will need it when they start their research, or if they plan to publish or finish their higher education level, like master or master's degree or doctorate. They actually will need to have more than one language if they wanted to be up to date to what new in their majors. Let's move to other. And we have some strategy here for using foreign resources. Because of there's some requirements of some universities or some share persons. Some of them require their student to have some foreign reference in their research, or even if we're talking about publishing articles or papers, some journals require foreign language. Actually, most impact journal it's in foreign language, so that the author has to have a foreign language. First strategy, sometimes we use two language. For example, let's see, if we're talking about the dissertation or thesis, sometimes we start in Arabic. The first strategy to start writing in Arabic, totally in Arabic. If we're talking about Arabic as an example, we write the whole paper with Arabic, and after that we added some foreign resource in English or in any other language. The second strategy, to use both in same time. Use, for example, let's talk that our mother language is Arabic. The second strategy, to use them at the same time. Use Arabic resources and use foreign resources at the same time. And then in the same time. As I mentioned in first strategy, we finish in Arabic totally, all what we wanted to write totally in Arabic, and after that we added some foreign references to our paper. The second, to work at the same time, foreign and in our language. And if we use foreign resources, we have to have some skills we will talking about later, and even we have to deal with them. Here, let's talking about the skills that we need when we deal with foreign resources. First skills, the main skills that we have to have to learn the language itself. We have to, for example, if our major most major related to English language, then we have to, the better of us to learn an acquisition of this language, and we have to be to learn it in this is better way to learn foreign language. This is first thing, and to be more يعني sorry if we have this language now, yeah,
you have 2 minutes to wrap up, okay?
Yes,
So
I
that
will
we
try
have
to.
questions.
Yes. Second, we have to determine most relevant reference to our topic. How to know this? We can make like keywords of our topic. So from keywords we can determine what the most relevant reference. After that, we have to identify the influence authors and influence journals in our field of research. After that, we have to use, we can use many tools and applications to translate foreign resources, especially if we don't have the language. I say that first skill to have the language, to learn the language itself. But if we don't have this language, we can use other tools and applications to help us to translate and help us to deal with the foreign resources. And last, we can hire some translator, some persons, and native speakers to help us to deal with the foreign resources. And how to deal with the foreign resources. I'm sorry, I have some confused with that. I think I have to deal with the foreign resources. For example, we have to translate our keyword of topic of our papers, and we have to be sure that those keywords we translate them about the accuracy of translate, that we correct them, we translate them correctly, and even we can hire the translator or a native speaker to be sure that those keywords, what we mean in our topic, that's same what we mean in our research or paper. And also we have to be sure there's no confuse between, because there's some words like synonym. We have to be sure that those words what we use in our topic. And we can also use some databases that our institutions or our organizations or our educational organization use them. And we can use some free resources like Google Scholar, ResearchGate, or Scopus, or CNN, or to find foreign resources. And last, how to deal with the foreign resource. As I mentioned, first of all, we have to translate keywords and use some, for example, some application, and there's a lot of application for translate and even for edit, and even for like other application to correct grammar and correct the edit some paragraphs, or we can use all those. Nowadays there's a lot of, and we have many applications to help us to
Hannah,
I'm sorry. Yeah.
your time is up. I'm really sorry to interrupt you, but we need to like spare some time for questions. I'm so sorry.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry. I was.
It's okay.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much for your presentation. Let's see if we have any questions from the audience. So your presentation reminded me of a paper and a talk I attended by Prue Holmes and Richard Fay, and the paper and the talk, they are entitled Researching Multilingually and the Importance of Including and as well respecting and preserving the language of the source and how to deal with it in, for instance, in an English thesis or an English article. So I mean, this technique of including other languages other than English helps in, like Professor Idris mentioned, in increasing the citations of works other than those published in Europe and English-speaking contexts. And as well, it's kind of as well encouraging inclusivity of all researchers' works. Thank you so much for your presentation. Sihem, you raised your hand. Would you like to ask a question?
Yeah, thank you, Amira. Thank you very much, Dr. Hanan, for your impressive presentations. I've just got a question regarding referencing. So some of us in the southern parts of the world generally tend to rely more on foreign references, believing that they are more reliable. I mean, when reading articles, you find or you may notice that there are lots of citations of foreign references, while locals maybe have written very well about the same issue. So I was wondering if you've got any idea about this problem, like what are the reasons for that?
I'm sorry, I don't get your question. What exactly? What you mean exactly?
I mean, writers in, for example, Algeria or Libya or Tunisia tend to rely more on articles written by scholars in, for example, the Western world, for example, in England, believing that they are better, they are well qualified. So why do we have this issue and this thinking?
In fact, most of there is some, as I told, some university or some policy that, and even some chairperson who ask their student to deal with or use the foreign references, that because we see that more impact authors or more impact journals, it's in foreign, unfortunately, in foreign language, so that we have, I think, because those reasons and many other reasons, they think that foreign resources maybe has the last update about the topic they studied in their paper or dissertation, so that we have they wanted to include what the most I think those reasons and maybe other reasons, and some of them just because university require them to include foreign references.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Hanan.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Hannah.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
Going to talk about navigating the publication process in a Scopus indexed journal, insights from my personal experience. Mustafa Amarat is a lecturer in applied linguistics and TEFL at the Department of English, University of Biskra. He holds an MA in applied linguistics from the University of Biskra and a PhD in education from the University of York, United Kingdom. His research interests revolve around second language speech and computer-assisted pronunciation training. Mustafa Amarat, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Amira. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Awesome. So I'm going to share my screen now.
Great.
All right. Can you see it?
Yes,
Awesome.
So we do.
thanks, Mustafa.
All right. Yes, so good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for the invitation. It's really a pleasure to talk at this event, and particularly about this topic of publication. So I'm just going to start with the outline of my presentation. Just forgive me for a second, just to keep with time, I'm going to start my timer. So in this brief, hopefully, presentation, I'm going to talk about the differences, about my experience in general. But before that, I'm just going to talk about some of the main points that helped me through the process of publishing my first article that was based on my PhD, and which are also helping me in publishing my second article. So I'm going to talk about the differences between writing, just briefly, the differences between writing a thesis and writing a journal article, choosing the journal, the guidelines for the manuscript, the submission process, the reviewing process, and then I'm going to show my experience. Just a disclaimer, I'm not an expert, a publication expert. I'm just a new or a junior researcher. I succeeded in publishing my main findings in a good journal, and hopefully also there is a second article coming, fingers crossed for that. And I'm only sharing my experience and what helped me through this process. First of all, just some of the main points about the differences between writing a thesis and writing a journal article. These are the things that you should be aware of as a junior researcher. When writing a thesis, the purpose is to demonstrate that you're an expert, or you know something, or you develop knowledge around that topic or that area. On the other hand, when writing a journal article, you need to communicate research. You're communicating research findings that show that you contribute to the academic discourse in that area. The length of a thesis is longer, obviously longer than usually, particularly in a PhD, longer than that of an article. The structure generally of a PhD thesis is complex and really field dependent. So each thesis is different, while on the other hand, a journal article is generally has a standardized structure of introduction, methodology, results, discussion, conclusion. And the styles also differ. The PhD is detailed. On the other hand, a journal article is concise and straightforward. You need to communicate everything in a maximum of 10,000 words. The reviewing process is different. Your PhD thesis is usually evaluated by a committee of experts, an internal and an external expert. On the other hand, the review process in publishing in journal paper articles is through anonymous peer review, the anonymous peer review process. The first thing you need to think about when trying to publish your article is really choosing the journal, which journal is best for your article. And I'm going to say the first thing you need to think about is the scope and relevance. And to find a journal that is relevant to your topic, you need to start with the references you used in your PhD. The second thing is the quality and reputation of the journal. I mentioned here the publisher, things that the speakers before me talked about, the publisher, the index, and the site score of the journal. These are not, I'm not saying these are the only criteria for the quality. This is obviously a contentious topic. Many researchers don't agree that the site score is really an indication of the quality. And also, this is really institution dependent and country dependent. Here in Algeria, we rely on the index provided by the Ministry of Higher Education. So you need to publish in particular journals, in particular class of journals for each stage in your career. For a PhD student, it's different from a lecturer trying to do the habilitation process or to rank up further in the academic ladder. Also, another thing you need to consider is the publication frequency of the journal. Some journals publish yearly, some journals publish quarterly, some journals publish monthly. So you need to be aware of that. Obviously, a journal that publishes yearly, there is a lesser chance of getting published there. And also the format. Some journals prefer to stay online only, and some journals have an online and a print format. Also, something that Dr. Salim mentioned earlier, the requirements of the journal. Some journals really want only empirical research, and they prefer and they avoid theoretical articles. In my experience in the field of computer-assisted language learning, in my area, most journals would like to publish only empirical research. And in order to publish a theoretical article, you need to be an established academic in that area, and your voice obviously will be heard more than if you're a novice researcher and want to write only theoretical articles. So publishing theoretical articles is way more challenging. And most journals really in the area publish empirical. Same thing for quantitative, qualitative. Some journals in the area of call only want quantitative work, and they, from my experience, they really avoid publishing qualitative, which is really also controversial, but this is just the sad reality of the publishing industry. The experience of you need to consider the experience of previous authors. This is really something that helped me. So you need to ask some authors and academics who published in that journal. You need to ask them about the reviewing process. Was it easy? Was it swift? Were there any challenges they faced from the editors? And yeah, this would help you navigate the publication process with that particular journal. So if you read an article and you like the journal, so try to email the authors and ask them about their experience with the submission, the editorial board, and the review process. Obviously, the manuscript guidelines, this is journal dependent and it will differ from journal to journal. You need to follow the format, the journal's formatting, the layout. This means not only the word limits, but also other things, the style, the referencing style, the structure, introduction, methodology. It differs, so you need to follow that structure of the formats of the journal. Keep it simple. Try to keep your language clear. Don't complicate. Don't use complicated language and difficult language. Try to explain things in a clear and concise way. Make it easy to follow. So use a logical order. Start by talking about giving a background about your topic, the aim of your study, the rationale for your study clearly. And also provide details when it comes to the methodology. Provide enough details to help researchers replicate your study. If they want to replicate your study, this is a big thing now in academia with the need for more open science. So you need to give every detail about your instruments, the data collection process, and the analysis process to make your study easy to replicate. Give credit, use appropriate referencing style, and proofread, which is very important for us who use English as a foreign language or as a second language. You need to proofread your manuscript. Does not have to be a native speaker. It can be another experienced academic who can look at your article. Always, more eyes are better than 2 eyes. To look at you won't notice some of the errors, some of the language related errors on your own, from my experience. So it's always better to proofread your manuscript. The submission process, now most of the global or most widely known journals use the ScholarOne platform, which requires a tutorial on its own. But this is really when you are going to submit your article, you're usually going to use the ScholarOne platform to to publish your article, and there you will find everything. You need to prepare your supporting documents, any extra documents you have with the article, either a data set, data collection instruments, anything you need to add into your article and you think would help your article getting published. You need to add them. Prepare a cover letter, and I'm going to show you a layout of the cover letter. Answer the questions, the copyright questions, add authors in order of their contribution, address any conflict of interests, and mention if you're using any external data sets or other sources. And also you need also to address some of the points related to printing options. Some journals ask you if you want to print in colors or something like that. So you need to address the printing options, your preferences, and confirm your submission. You usually receive an email confirming that. This is how a cover letter usually looks like. You address the editor and you ask them that you want to publish the title. You need to mention the title of your manuscript for publication in this journal, mention the journal name, and briefly state the aim of your study, the methodology of your study, and the contribution, mainly the contribution of your study, how this study is contributing to the discourse in this field. You also need to address in the cover letter usually that you did not submit this publication elsewhere, and that you listed all of the contributing authors in order of their contribution. So this is what a cover letter usually looks like. So in my experience, the first time I published, I was surprised, and I had to publish, and I had to write one quickly. But it's always nice to prepare a cover letter, a written cover letter before you start the submission process. The review process, just some of the tips: address the reviewers' comments. Sometimes you don't agree with their points, but this is academia. You'll find people that you disagree with. What you need to do is consider their perspective. Even if you think they are wrong, try to address their points. You can challenge them. This is not like a PhD where you're afraid that you won't get your degree. You can challenge them if you have enough rationale or enough evidence to challenge their comments. You can do it, but do it respectfully. But also, the first thing you need to do is to consider their perspective, consider where they're coming from. You'll most likely be asked to provide some additional information or data if needed. Something important: if you're the corresponding author in a publication, you will be receiving all of the emails from the editors and the reviewers. You need to keep the co-authors up to date with what is happening and with the progress, the publication process, and you need to tell them because they are parts of this publication. And something important: be patient and professional. As you'll see from my experience, it's a long process. You need to be patient. You need to be professional. Even if you think you've been, the process is not going well, be professional. Even when communicating with the editors and communicating with the reviewers, try to be constructive and diplomatic. So generally, this is what the process would look like of publishing a paper article. You submit, the article goes through the editorial assessment, and they will see if the article fits the scope and the field of the journal. They will send it later to peer review. And depending on the time of the peer review, you get a decision. This decision would fall into accept with no revisions. This is rare, accept with minor corrections, or accept with major corrections, or reject and resubmit. And then you have the publication process. This is the ideal process, but in my experience, the experience was as follows. I first submitted my article. This is for the main findings. I submitted the main findings of my PhD, so the PhD was done, and then I submitted in the format of a journal article. I first submitted the article in May of 2020. I got a decision in June. The journal I submitted in was a computer-assisted language learning. They follow a good 2-week review and policy, so it's not you usually get the decision very soon after you submit. So the first decision I got was a major accept with major revisions in June 2020. I had to work throughout the summer on the feedback of the reviewers. I submitted. I did the second submission in August 2020. I received a decision, except with minor revisions, in October of 2020, and then a third submission in December 2020. And it's a tricky time to submit in at the end of the year. I got a decision in January 2021 that was accept with no revisions. And then the online publication went online in March of 2021, and the print publication was published only recently in December 2022. So ideally, the process is not ideal. It took 2 years for the print publication to appear. And it's always nice to see your work published. It's a good experience, and it's also worth the wait, worth the work to know that your article is published somewhere nice and somewhere visible and for everyone to see. Unfortunately, in this case, it's not really accessible for everyone, but at least in a good place. So it was worth waiting. If you ask me, it was worth waiting for 2 years. So this was everything. If you have any questions, you're more than welcome to ask. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mustafa, for kindly sharing your experience with us. So, a successful experience, actually. And congrats again on publishing this article. Nishwa is raising her hand. Nishwa, you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hello, Amira.
Hi, Nishwa.
Hi. Well, unfortunately, I missed the first part of the speaker's presentation. And what I would like to know, or my question is, when selecting an international journal for publication, what are the criteria to consider? As you all know, we are used to publish only in local journals, but now I think it's time to start publishing in international journals. And as beginners, we need some tips and the criteria to consider.
Mustafa, would you like to answer her?
Yes. I'm going to give a naive answer. I think, you have to consider the scope. Obviously, the first thing, because you want to publish in an international journal, I would check the index of the journal, whether it fits the purpose. Why are you publishing? Are you publishing as part of your PhD? Are you publishing as part to go through the habilitation process if you're in Algeria? So it depends. And the first thing you need to do is to start with the scope, the relevance of the journal, and whether it really fits the nature of your research. Yes, start with the scope and relevance to your study, and then see the list, all of the journals you can find in that area, in your area of research, and then try to see which one is recognized in Algeria, recognized in the index you're using. And it really, because we're talking about international publishing, I think the first thing you need to do in order to avoid desk rejection, which was the main concern of many Algerian academics I met, is the desk rejection. The desk rejection, usually, if you're dealing with a respected, reputable journal, international journal, usually stems from the fact that your article or your study does not fit the scope and relevance of the study. From my experience, this is the main reason for desk rejection, and I received many rejections. So this is usually if your study fits the scope, relevance of the journal, if it fits the requirements of the journal, you will go through the process of the peer review process. The peer review process is long, okay? The peer review process is not easy, as we saw with the previous speakers. Yes, I hope I answered your question.
Well, the peer review process is crazy, and at the same time, you should expect like weird comments and perhaps things that you never thought about. So you have to be flexible with it. Thank you so much, Mustafa.
Thank you.
Hanan has got another question for you. Hanan, you should unmute yourself first, please.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Amira. I forgot to unmute myself. Sorry. So, Mustafa.
Hi.
Hi there. So, Mustafa, you mentioned, you highlighted in your presentation that they refused qualitative studies. Is that what happened with you? I mean, it's like a personal experience, or it's just like a conclusion from what
Can you repeat?
have...
Can you repeat, please? I did not hear.
Mustafa, I said you highlighted or you mentioned in your presentation that that they refused what qualitative research.
Yes. No.
I mean,
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on this, Mustafa? Is
Yes.
it what happened to you as a personal
Yes.
experience, or is just what others have experienced, and why?
Yes.
Why qualitative research?
Yes.
is effective?
Yeah. This is really controversial. I don't want to mention because I mainly work in computer-assisted language learning. The journals are known. We have 6, 7 journals indexed in Scopus, and we all know their style. There is a particular journal that I was because my work was mixed methods. With computer-assisted language learning, I did not face any difficulties, but there is a journal in COL that refuses any non-empirical work or any work that is heavily qualitative or exploratory. It's very sad, but yeah, when trying to submit your article, look at the previous publications. Look in that particular journal. Look at the previous issues. Do they publish qualitative work? Do they publish exploratory studies, non-empirical studies? And there are unfortunately some journals that would like heavily quantitative empirical research only. Yes, it's an issue, but it's field dependent in the area of second language speech and computer-assisted pronunciation training. I can say that because my work was half quantitative and half qualitative, and so I faced this issue. And one of the first things that my supervisor used to tell me is just be careful. Some journals, whenever they see qualitative work, exploratory work, they put you under a lot of like scrutiny. And yes, so what I say, what I give as an advice is look at the previous publications. Does this journal publish qualitative, exploratory work, non-empirical work? Yes. But yeah, and I remember even in my PhD examination, one of the members of my jury told me explicitly, don't publish in that journal. She just said, I know they will reject your article. Anything you send them, they will reject it. And that was true. When I asked other researchers in the area and emailed and talked with other researchers, they said, yes, some, they told me about that particular journal that, yes, they don't publish any qualitative work or exploratory work, and they heavily focus on empirical experimental studies in the area of computer
Mustafa,
systems.
I think, sorry to interrupt, it's
Yes.
discipline specific, right? It's
Yes,
not
of course.
generalized.
Yeah, of course. I'm not talking
Area.
general. Yes,
It's
yes.
area
yes.
specific.
Area
It's
specific.
area
of course, yeah.
Specific.
Yeah.
Yeah, but nonetheless, you have to see if you have any doubts, always go back to the previous publications and see if they publish qualitative or exploratory work. Yes.
Thank you
Yeah,
so
and
much, Mustafa.
I guess it's always preferable to read the publications of the journal that you wish to publish in, just to be safe from like you said, desk rejection. At least you get it to minor or major revisions,
Yes.
rather
Yeah.
than get it rejected.
Totally,
Yeah.
Amira.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, with the peer review process, I know because many of my colleagues Biskra, they always tell me, oh, the review process, I don't like the review process. With the review process, to be honest, I prefer to work on real feedback for 2 years, or maybe it just happens. Some of my colleagues told me they've been working on a paper for 3 to 4 years. So you really need a thick skin and not a thick head. This is just, you need to have a thick skin. You need to be open-minded, expect feedback, try to work on that feedback. And yeah, this is academia, unfortunately. Yes.
I think this is the golden nugget of today's webinar, is to have a thick skin and not a thick head when wanting to publish. Thank you, Mustafa.
Thank you.
Fuzia would like to ask a question. Fuzia?
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Everyone.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Dr. Amira, for your presentation. It's really impressive. But I just want to add something that I'm pulling from my own experience. That sometimes you can read the mind of editors. One of the journals, and I looked through the papers published in order to publish my work on ESP, and particularly aviation in the context of Algeria, aviation English, I mean. So some journals were, some papers were published there, and they were titled Aviation English, for instance, in China, Aviation English in Vietnam, Aviation English in Asia, and the methods, as you said, most of them were quantitative, exploratory, etc. So I thought that my paper would be accepted. So can you imagine that I got his desk rejection, and the reason that my work is parochial, he said that it doesn't address the wider audience of ESP, though aviation English in China, actually it's actually considered only China and other Asian countries. So it's not always a rule that if we find some papers actually that fits or our aim fit in. So it depends, I guess, in the country where the journal is based, or the perspective of the editor in chief, how this editor actually is thinking, and what's his perspective towards the writers of North Africa particularly. So this is my own experience, and I got the desk rejection. From this time, I didn't send my paper to any other journal actually.
Thank you. I'm sorry for your experience, but if you think a journal refused your work because where you're from, I would not suggest you read that journal or try to publish in it. To be honest, I've in the top 100 to 200 journals in Scopus right now, it is very rare to get this, particularly from reputable publishers. And I don't know where you try to publish, but particularly from reputable publishers.
It's Q1 journal. It's Q1. It's Scopus Index. Yes, Scopus Index.
Scopus Index does not always mean a good journal, to be honest. But I'm talking about the publisher itself, because these people are under a lot of pressure to deal with everyone fairly. I from my experience, I'm talking from experience. The only thing, perhaps, because when I tried to, in my first article, when I tried to publish, I had the affiliation at the University of York, and then I changed the affiliation because I started working here in Algeria. So the only thing perhaps that I sensed from the editor was that there was more scrutiny in terms of similarity, because I used some of the materials, and to be honest, I did not reference them properly. Amira knows about this experience, and then I referenced them properly, and then they accepted the article. At no point I felt that I'm being judged, as this is obviously a brief experience, and also I'm having another experience now. I don't know if you have that experience with the journal that you think refused you because you're from Egypt, you're from Libya, you're from Tunisia, I would not suggest you submit in that or read articles from that journal. Line. Yeah. I would not, yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you so much.
Or just wait until the editor changes, so it's changed, so that you can
or report to the chief editor or the or the publisher. If this is a reputable, if it's Wiley, if it's Springer, report your experience and share it with everyone.
References,
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Good luck, Mustafa, with your next paper, and good luck, Fuzia, with publishing this paper. Try again with other journals. I'm sure you can publish it. For Malika and Nashwa, I'm very sorry. We can leave your questions for the next, after the next speaker. We can have an open discussion. I'm really sorry because we are running out of time. So now I'm moving to Dr. Yara Shukri. She's going to talk about two heads are better than one. Online peer feedback to foster L2 students' writing skills. Yara is a lecturer at the Faculty of Education, Port Said University in Egypt. She is also an associate fellow of the Higher Education Academy in the UK. Yara obtained her PhD in applied linguistics from the University of York in 2021. Her area of research involves computer-assisted language learning, second language writing, and peer feedback. Yara?
Hi, Amira. Thank you so much for the
I'm
introduction.
happy to meet you. I'm so
happy to meet you again.
you.
Thank you so much. I'm trying just to share the screen and hopefully it works. I think it didn't work yet, so right.
You can try again.
Yeah.
If you have the technical committee with you, if you have any problem, you can send the presentation to Dr. Sihem, which will forward it to us, and we will do the rest.
That's fine. I think.
Yeah, send it to me, Yara.
All right, because I don't want to waste your time, so I will just do that very quickly. I'm sorry about that.
That's
it's
all right.
Weird. Okay, so.
Send it in WhatsApp or Messenger, Yara.
Yes, yes. Can you just type your email in the chat box, please, Sihem?
Okay.
Yeah, I'll just because okay. Okay, Sam, so I'm sharing it with you now in WhatsApp.
Yeah, okay, Yara. Send it in WhatsApp or in Messenger.
Yes,
yeah.
I'm sending it to you. Sorry, guys. Sorry. This
That's
inconvenience
fine.
and
maybe Mustafa can ask the rest of the questions in the meantime. Yes, Amira?
Pardon? Yes, Malika. Yeah, she can.
Yeah.
Malika? Mustafa, are you still there?
Yes, I am still here.
Hello,
Okay, great.
hello everyone. I thank all the speakers for sharing their experiences and also the all the information. And actually, I don't want to ask a question, but want to underline some of the remarks made by made in the presentation of Mustafa, which is the first one is consider the perspectives of the reviewers during the review process. And the second one is be patient and professional. I committed the mistakes of not being considering the perspectives of the reviewers in after having my article been accepted for publications. I changed some of the words or some of the recommendations without consulting with the reviewer, and then I got my article rejected after it has been accepted for publication. So this is advice number one that I give to those who want to publish in highly indexed journals. The second one is be patient. Again, this is very important to be patient in order to be published in these highly indexed journals, because I agree with Mustafa, who said that it's better to have one's article published in a good place rather than publish it in a place where it's not, it cannot be seen, or it cannot be cited. Hopefully I learned my experience from this experience, and I got my some of my articles published in highly indexed journals, and this is why I wanted to share this experience with those who are attending this conference. Thanks a lot.
Well, thank you so much, Malika, for sharing with us your experience and advice. Thank you. Nishwa, are you still interested to ask your question?
Dr. Mustafa, I think you have already answered the question when you were talking to Fuzia. But let me ask it again. Okay, let's suppose my paper was rejected in a certain international journal. What next? Shall I make changes and submit it to the same journal, or make no changes at all and submit it to another journal, international journal, or isn't it worth the trouble of resubmission?
This, thank you for your question, Najwa. This depends on the type of rejection. If it's a desk rejection, I would advise you to look elsewhere. I would really try to look at other journals and see if you can publish your work elsewhere. If it has been rejected after the review process, if there were like a lot of comments and there were like major revisions needed, I would advise you to work on the feedback of the reviewers and then resubmitting the work again. Or even if you don't want to submit, if you think the reviewers were very harsh, because this is reality. Sometimes you're faced with very, very harsh criticism, although I do reviews for call, and we're always reminded by the editors to be respectful and to be constructive. But somehow some reviewers, they seem to be very, very angry when they are doing these reviews. And yeah, you can always take the feedback. It's free feedback, okay? Take that feedback. If you think there is no chance to get it published there, look elsewhere and take advantage of that feedback. Work on that feedback. Yeah, but it depends. But if it's major revisions, except with major revisions, minor revisions, I would always suggest you keep working with that journal. Keep working on feedback.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Mustafa, for your answer. I think, yes, like he said, it's feedback. And it's given for free. So we should like work on it and learn from it. Sometimes, well, for me, if it's about the main scope of the journal, I would withdraw my article and look elsewhere. Sometimes the revisions are very substantial, that even the idea or the argument of your article changes if you work, like if you follow them. So for me, when the revisions reach that level, I always refrain from publishing with that journal. I'm not sure if it's like correct or wrong for a novice researcher, but to me, this is like my principle. If it's about the main idea, I stop publishing with that journal. If it's just to make it better, then yes, I carry on with them.
Okay, thank you, Amira. Thank you.
You're welcome. So, Sihem, Yara, are the slides ready?
I hope so. So Sihem should have received it now, I think. So the issue is just I have just updated my laptop before I start the presentation. I've updated my Zoom. That's why it should be the issue with the privacy and settings.
Yeah,
I'm sorry about this.
Like this happen. It's
Exactly.
okay.
I didn't expect this happen today.
Yeah, it is uploading. Just a minute.
Perfect.
Great.
Yeah.
Amira,
Yes. Yes, Hanan?
well, can I just say a word? Waiting for Yara's presentation to be ready. So
Oh,
this
yes.
this is to Mustafa. Are you still there, Mustafa?
Yes, I'm still here. Yes.
Mustafa, I have a special, I don't know, thank you, or I don't know how to call it, from a student of mine. His name is Ahmed.
Oh, nice.
He said, I'm quite impressed by Mustafa.
Oh, thank
He
you.
said you're doing
I'm
a
honored.
great
I'm
job.
really honored. I'm really honored. Thank you. Thank
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mustafa.
you. Thank you, Hannah. Thank you.
Thank you.
So waiting for the slides of Yara to get uploaded, I would like to discuss with Salim and Mustafa and even Professor Idri, if she's still here. So when talking about
Yes, I'm here with you.
enriching our CVs, they're great. Enriching our CVs as novice researchers. I guess there are ways of doing that. So first is increasing our visibility. And the other thing, perhaps that visibility would really help in being approached by editors of international journals and even reviewers. So I think, let me say it differently. So networking, like you said, and visibility. So instead, for instance, of a novice researcher to keep like being scared of publishing in an international journal, why not working on their visibility? And that visibility can be done by going to conferences, participating in conferences, in webinars like this one, in there are different like activities going on, study days and so on. I think by keeping themselves like their profiles on ResearchGate, Academia, LinkedIn, Twitter, even Facebook, and joining Facebook groups and sharing their activities, I think this would increase their chances to get invited to publish instead of being the ones sending those proposals and waiting for the answers or for acceptance. What do you think?
Can I answer this?
Sorry,
Can
I couldn't. Yes, please.
Yeah. Unfortunately, and this is throughout my own experience, unfortunately, I think it's more of a closed circle. If you have offers, if they like to be more visible, I think there is only one door in throughout the well-reputed journals, and they have created this circle to limit any other, as perhaps Professor Idri said before, to limit any other competition to some extent. And one of the, I would say, experience that we have with someone else sending an article to a well-famous university in the United States of America, and he received a rejection, but not only a rejection that says, who are you? What do you think you are doing? Or how dare you to send a manuscript to us? Who are you? What is your background? Who is your supervisor? So you will acknowledge a local visibility to some extent, but a more international visibility is only through those only closed circle of journals. Yes, I think so. That's my point of view.
Yeah, thank you so much, Salim, for your point of view. What do you think, Mustafa and Professor Nadia?
Yeah, I think there are some of the things that junior researchers can do to increase their visibility apart from like publishing, from just publishing. I think the best route to go now is through the Open Science Framework, the OSF. I think this is a new way of doing research. So I would really highly advise new PhD students and novice researchers to check their platform. The Open Science Framework is trying to make the research process more visible by registering studies online and giving or showing your data collection instruments, doing like publishing preprints, even before going through the peer review process. It's granted that not all of the journals are accepting this new way of doing things, but it's the best way to go through it. To have your research visible even before the peer review process, the traditional peer review process. Other things I suggest to new researchers: have your accounts, Twitter accounts, ResearchGate accounts, Google Scholar accounts, all ready before starting your work, and also have your ORCID ID. All of these things can help you and network. It's true what Salim is saying. Some of the circles of research are closed, and some people call them cliques. And you cannot really. It's like an exclusive club. You cannot join them. But if you cannot join them, you can always create your own club. There is space for everyone. It's just there is arrogance. Arrogance in academia, and you have some closed circles that are like established, and you cannot join them because they think you cannot do better than them. But if you cannot join them, just create your own team, and it's challenging. It's challenging, but this is what I suggest. But
I think my experience is a bit different. Maybe I will sound more optimistic than you. Because my network and the conferences I've been to really helped me with the publishing process. So till now, I received 2 invitations to publish. One is was already published in 2020 or 2021, and the other one is under publication. And I always get the invitation from the editor herself or himself. So I think it's also a matter of making lots of effort on updating all your social media platforms and keeping keeping yourself noticed by academics, and as well by keeping also developing yourself academically. Because if you don't move forward, it means you are moving backward, and that wouldn't really be good for you. As Nadia said, it's also about reputation, how much you are progressing, the pace, and so on. So all these, I think, there are also factors. Why I'm saying this is because it's actually a bit like you said, it's a vicious circle, and it's like a niche. So if you are not there from the beginning, you might need several years to catch up. So I think being there and working smartly, seeing how you make yourself noticed, and then you work a little by little on making maybe good publications in well-reputed journals. That would be perhaps your ultimate ambitions. But at the beginning, we can just progress little by little to build ourselves and get developed to reach that level of publishing.
Yes, may I?
Yes, sure.
Well, of course, the debate is quite interesting, and we are completing each other in all these comments. Of course, I've heard many of the presentations and the questions. I think that one good starting point, one of the questions is how to get started to publish in international journals. The first step, I think it is good to participate in international conferences and mainly in-person conferences now. It's the best place where you find people from the same field of interest.
Exactly.
I've traveled just a few days ago, in the beginning of February, this is a month ago, to Tunisia, where I met more than 100 of nationalities from the Arab world. And I started already getting invitations to network. So now I start publishing in the 3 languages, Arabic, French, and English. So the language is not that problem, as we mentioned. It's not only that we publish in English that we can get noticed, but of course, English is the first language of publication, but still, if you publish about your context in English, so there are many themes that can attract the Occident's attention. So the choice of the hot topics also is one of the parameters one novice researcher can consider. So try to think about a topic that might attract interest of many scholars worldwide. And another point is your answers to the call for papers. Try all the time to be up to date about the call for papers for book chapters. Book chapters generally are free of charge, but they might help you to get noticed. I think that many of our Algerian scholars do not care about book chapters just because they find that they are not so important in their promotions. But if you consider the aspect of visibility and recognition, I think this is a very good gate, mainly if the publisher is from these Occidents. Of course, I heard somebody saying that it is not a matter to think that we need to exclude the third world, for example, or the southern part of the globe's people. This exists. The white supremacy exists. It's a theme. It's in the Bible. It's in their logic, in their way of thinking. It's hard to maybe to have your place. So how to do so? It's by publication. Even if you have desk rejections, we have seen many success stories with the 20 to 30 desk rejection for the same paper, but at the end, this paper was published in Nature Plus. So it's not a matter of quality sometimes, but it's a matter of trying to learn from these rejections and trying to find the right journal. Not as Fuzia said, I stopped my submission. You do not need to stop. There are millions of journals actually. So from one journal to another, you will knock the door one day to the right journal. So I think that this is a long process and hard process. If we make an effort as third world countries or the southern part of the globe, we need to have 10 times effort compared to somebody from the UK or from the USA or else. We need to double our efforts in order to get the same chances, but we need not to give up. I would like to add my experience because I attended many of the webinars of ranking journals. Now there is a competition between ranking institutions. Why do we have the Q1 or the A, B? Because there is maybe another classification from the Asian part or the Asiatic countries where they opt for the Q1 instead of the Scopus in their countries. So these are political decisions in their respective countries. One of my colleagues who is Canadian, I asked him to send a paper to my journal. He said, I do not have the right to publish anywhere. I have a list of journals where I need to publish because I'm a visiting professor in Asia. You see the idea. It's so, sometimes it is a political decision. So if you would like, as a new and novice scholar, to knock the door of international visibility, I do not want to repeat what other colleagues said about ORCID and Google Scholar. Keep yourself really up to date about your social media, when I Google your name, I find that you are in many scholarly databases and even networks. Another tip is to subscribe to serve lists. Many of the interesting call for papers, which are field specific, come within what we call the serve lists. Serve lists can maybe group many of the people who share the same interest. For example, I'm a member in a serve list about learner autonomy, just about learner autonomy. If you're interested in publishing a paper about this, so you find just all call for papers and contributions about this. And there are many other examples. Of course, my email box is full of opportunities because I subscribe all the time to networks which are internationally approved. Like, for example, the ILA. ILA is the Association Internationale de la Linguistique Appliquée. So it is only about applied linguistics and international association. I'm a member of TESOL America, which is a very interesting, that gives you really hundreds of opportunities. So I think that the debate is so interesting, so we can share our experiences, but it's not in this closed space. I know time does not permit to speak about all what we have to maybe enlighten our novice scholars' minds. And of course, our aim is to send some positive vibes and hope in order to get started. So go ahead, please, dear colleagues.
Thank you so much, Nadia. Thank you. Okay, thank you also, Mustafa and Yara, and Salim. So now it's time for Yara to start her presentation.
Yes. All right. Thank you all. Thank you for having me today. And I really enjoyed all the presentations that I have learned, and I've learned a lot today from all of you. So I will do my best to stick to the time. Don't worry about that. So my topic is entitled Two Heads Are Better Than One, Why Peer Feedback in Research Writing Group Matters. And I have chosen this topic in particular because it has something to do with my PhD in peer feedback, which I believe is really an important activity, and not just in second language writing classrooms, but also in academia. And I wanted to share my experiences with this particular activity, especially how we can use it in academic groups or in writing groups in academia, especially for novice researchers. So here is the outline. I'm going to start off with the definition of academic writing, and then I'm going to talk about this pressure that we all go through as novice researchers, that we have to publish, and then the challenges of writing research papers. And I'm going to introduce the solution, which is writing retreats as a solution to overcome these challenges that we always go through when we try to write research articles, why peer feedback matters, the challenges of implementing peer feedback, and some strategies for effective peer feedback sessions in research writing groups. So first thing is, what is academic writing? Could you please go to the next slide, Sihem? Yes, so as we all know, academic writing is a complex process, and as you can see, it includes a lot of steps and procedures. Like you have to read the literature, develop ideas, gather facts, analyzing data, reflecting, developing an argument, connecting to a body of knowledge, editing, and proofreading. So it's really a complex process, and it's very daunting indeed. Thompson, next slide, describes writing as an act of identity, like an identity formation. When she said that, and she's actually one of my favorite authors, that I'm going to send you like some recommendations, some books I read for her. If you are interested in reading more about academic writing for doctoral dissertation, or if you are interested in reading about writing for publication, she has really good publications. I'm going to recommend them. I'm happy to recommend them after the presentation. So she said, like, she described writing as an act of identity, which I agree with. And when she said, when we write, we not only produce text, we also produce ourselves as scholars, as we make textual decisions, what to write about, who to cite and who to leave out, what evidence to include, how we use language to craft our voice. We're also writing. So we are, in this way, we are actually writing ourselves as scholars. So next slide, please. So drawing on in the notion, as I think Professor Idri with the first presentation, she mentioned something about this common phrase that we always hear in academia, the pressure of having to publish or perish. Some people say, like, be discoverable or die. And this is a very common phrase to describe the pressure researchers feel to publish their research findings in order to stay relevant and be successful within the academia. So publishing for them means academic ranking, promotion, bonuses, lecturers, national and international reputations, and no publishing means, no academic ranking. I should have said nose here. So sorry, I have to edit that. So it's no academic ranking, no promotion, no bonuses, no national and international reputation. So if no publishing, it is a demotion and you perish. So what are the challenges of writing for publication? What are the challenges that we all, I'm focusing more particularly on novice writers and early academic researchers. First of all, if you ask anybody, any scholar, he will say time. I don't have time. So the pressure on time is often stated as the main reason for not being able to write. So many academics, actually, all of us struggle with managing their time effectively to write research papers. And that's why many academics do not publish, unfortunately. So we have to deal with a huge workload. We are expected to teach and design teaching materials, develop courses and design exams and attend conferences. So with all this huge workload, we have to publish as well. So all these duties can be really extremely challenging, especially for novice academics. However, which surprisingly, I read like a research article saying that productive writers have often been found to have more work responsibility than non-productive writers, which is really surprising, because I was always thinking, like, how someone who's really well-known scholar like that, how he managed to find the time to publish like that. And this is, I found by research and evidence that productive writers, they have been found really to have found, still they have many work responsibilities. So, which means that time is not the only factors, and it shouldn't be an excuse. There are some other factors as well, which is like the lack of experience. So especially if we are like novice writers, we still don't have enough experience of publishing. And of course, writer's block, which is a common challenge faced by novice writers while writing a research paper. It can lead actually to procrastination and delay in completing the paper, which I always struggle with, to be honest. When I don't find like the ideas, I always get this like frustration and I keep procrastinating writing and sending my paper. Of course, other things like emotional barriers, like these things include like low self-confidence. Always you are like fear of rejection. You don't have this confidence in yourself to publish in high impact journals. And most importantly, of course, is the language barriers, which is for most of us as non-native English speakers, writing a research paper still remains challenging because this is not our first language. We may still struggle with grammar, vocabulary, because of our English proficiency is not, of course, as competent as a native speaker. And therefore, we might really feel hesitant to write. So, next slide. So as one way of overcoming these challenges, which I'm recommending, and it's recommended in research, is by promoting writing for research through what is called the writing retreat model. And I'm sure all of you, most of you, some way or another has joined writing retreats groups during your PhD journey, or maybe still you're joining these groups either virtually or in person. And I find them really, really very helpful, because they are like, they create time and space to write academic articles in a very concentrated period of time. And it's very common in United States and the United Kingdom, Australia, and it's also used outside academia environments, not just for academic people. Writing retreats also organized by novelists, poets, anybody interested in writing retreats groups. And I'm sure, I think Dr. Sihem has joined writing retreats with me, and maybe Dr. Mustafa, all of you joined, experienced this during their PhD, and I'm sure they would have some positive experience sharing this with us. And so why I recommend writing retreats, or why it is recommended. Next slide, please. First, it really creates an atmosphere of trust, safety, and empowerment. When you see everybody's busy working on their computers and producing, this is really very motivating. And also it's protected time and space. So writing retreats offer a dedicated time and a space for writers to focus only on their writing without any distractions. So forget about all these iPhones and these distractions. You have just to focus on your work, because you will see everybody around you is always also focusing without any distractions, and this is very encouraging to you. And this is discourage procrastination and managing writing related anxiety, because some non-native speakers suffer from anxiety when it comes to start writing in another language. And also create new space for mutuality and collaboration. And most importantly, which is the focus of today's topic, is the opportunity to engage with and in the practice of what is known as peer feedback. So why I'm focusing solely on peer feedback? Because I still believe that some of us as scholars still prefer to write in isolation. It happened with me a lot. So I wasn't a big fan of writing retreats still, while I'm still recommending it, but I'm recommending most particularly, and I'm focusing more on the peer feedback stage, which is not always common in many writing retreats groups around the universities because of so many reasons. So why peer feedback? Next slide, please. Or let's say, what is peer feedback first? And it's an interactive and reciprocal process in which the writers or reviewers play the role sometimes of the reviewer, and then another time they play the role of the writer, like they exchange their written work and they keep exchanging comments on this. And it's really it's very valuable because it's based on the theory of Vygotsky. I'm sure all of you know about the zone of proximal development and social constructivism, which highly values the peer collaboration through social interactions. This is very good for learning. So, and peer feedback can take many forms. Actually, it can be in written format, it can be an oral, it can be a mix of both. And why peer feedback in particular I recommend as like as a type of collaboration, because there are some other ways of collaboration, of course, which is collaborative writing, especially if you are writing a paper together. This is some ones, but peer feedback is considered the simplest and most frequently used type of collaboration when I compare it with another types of collaboration like joint writing, parallel writing. So peer feedback is not just common in second language writing classrooms. It can also be implemented in writing research groups as well. So why? Next slide, please. So peer feedback in writing has actually so many benefits. First, like help writers gain a fresh perspective on their work and identify blind spots that they may not have noticed on their own. And it's like, as Mustafa, I like what he said, when you have more eyes, better than having one eye. So it's really good to have more than one fresh eye look at your work, and it highlights the writer's strengths and weaknesses in writing, which eventually result in improving their final work products. And constructive feedback, positive feedback especially, really is very conducive to building confidence and leads to improvement in writing and substantial revisions and self-regulated learning. creates, of course, a sense of community when we share opinions and engage in academic dialogue. This stimulates extensive modifications in the later drafts. And finally, we might think that peer feedback is just helpful for the writers. No, it's also helpful for the reviewers. It actually enhances their awareness of their own writing issues. Sometimes when I look at somebody's other drafts, I can find out what issues I myself have in my own writing. And this is proved by scholars like Storm and Baker, who found that writing focusing only on providing peer review improved their own writing more than the writers who only received peer review comments. And actually, I have also some positive findings in my PhD like that reviewers reported that they have benefited more from reviewing other people's work than like receiving feedback on their work as writers. But still, there are some challenges, which is in the next slide I can talk about. The first challenge, actually, the lack of trust in reviewers' comments. Sometimes if you are paired up with a second language researcher, you're still thinking in your mind, oh, he's still not a native speaker. I wouldn't trust his comments. He might, especially if also he's a novice writer. Oh, okay, he is in the same level like me. I might not receive very valuable comments. So, and this is actually very common in second language writing classrooms as well. It's not just in second language writing retreat groups. So it's very common that this lack of trust in each other, just like feedback and comments. No, I need somebody who's like more superior than me. This is like, because we are coming from teacher-centered contexts, we always think that the teacher or the supervisor, he is the more knowledgeable than me. So he is the only source of knowledge that I should receive feedback from. And this is a very big challenge, actually. And that's why there are always resistance to this, to integrate this activity in writing classrooms. Cultural factors, which is also a very common challenge in writing classrooms. So by cultural factors, I mean in collective culture like China, Japan, and even in Arab countries, sometimes we may be reluctant to provide feedback to each other because we think, oh, I don't want to hurt her feelings by just commenting her grammar, commenting her, proofreading her work. So we think so much about like face saving and about like, we don't want to hurt each other's feelings, which is very common in just collective culture in particular. And of course, the reluctance to provide feedback. Sometimes academics may doubt their own ability to evaluate their work, other people's work, for many reasons, as I said earlier, for language barriers or lack of knowledge in specific area or research field. So, and in relation to that, I'm going just briefly to refer to the findings of my doctoral study in the next slide, which focused on online tools to facilitate peer feedback processes. Because of this challenge that I have always read in literature, the hesitancy to provide feedback by reviewers and the hesitancy and reluctance to accept the peer feedback on the part of the writers. So my study argued that by integrating technology and facilitating the integration of online sources like dictionaries and the access to websites, language websites, this might empower reviewers to provide feedback to the writers, because they know that there is a second resource that I can look at and I can double check if I'm right or wrong, and then I can provide feedback to the writer. And the same thing, the writer also knows that he has a chance to double check if the feedback he received from the writer is correct or not. So the study argued that online peer feedback scenarios in which students could produce comments enhanced by support from online tools would really empower peer reviewers to provide valid feedback comments and encourage writers to trust and accept this feedback from second language reviewers. So my study highly recommended the integration of technology, and I didn't expect that second language writers would really be very welcoming to this integration of technology and using it for peer feedback. And this was really empowering for them and provided them with give them trust on their own abilities as reviewers and negotiators of the feedback, and also contributed to high frequency full acceptance of peer feedback. So most of the peer feedback comments have been accepted by the writers at the end. And this has led to trust in the application of peer feedback. So So I would like to, given these promising findings that I came up with in my doctoral study, I think feedback has been also implemented successfully.
Sorry to interrupt you, Doctor.
Yeah, sorry.
If you can just
Sure.
adjust your microphone.
You can hear me now. Hello? Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, Yara, there is a kind of sound in your mic.
Now?
Yeah, but I guess there is a problem with your mic.
So, one second. How about now?
Yeah, good, great. Thanks,
Right.
Yara.
I hope you haven't missed much from what I'm saying.
Yeah, just in recent few minutes.
All right. So I just tapped into my findings of my doctoral research findings, because the promising findings that I came up with in my PhD encouraged me to highly recommend the integration of peer feedback in writing research, in writing retreats groups, because I myself attended writing research groups in the UK, and I didn't find that peer feedback integration was a very important factor, was a very important thing. It's always neglected, and it's not always like focused on by the participants. So so in order to make sure that we can employ peer feedback successfully in writing retreats, there are some strategies which I recommend we employ. So first, can you go to the next slide, please, Sihem?
Yara, please, can you just finish in 2 minutes?
Yeah, can you go to the next slide? So we need first some strategies for effective peer feedback, setting clear guidelines before the retreat begins, establish clear guidelines for giving and receiving feedback, and then we can model group writing practice. This can happen by experienced researchers can model good writing practices by sharing their own writing processes and techniques with novice writers. Also, we can, as I said, we can use technology tools to facilitate the collaboration and the discussion as well. And we can use feedback forms like checklists and rubrics or whatever to encourage like the sharing of comments, and of course provide time for revision, provide resources such as books, articles, or online courses that can help participants improve their writing skills, and experienced researchers can share resources, of course, such as templates, checklists, and guides that help novice writers improve their writing skills. And facilitate group discussion with participants, and this can share their experiences and discuss common challenges that they face as novice writers as well. So by scaffolding from experienced researchers with novice writers, this can be really helpful in the peer feedback process. So at the end, to conclude, in the next slide, please. I wanted to say that peer feedback is a really valuable tool for improving the quality of research papers, and I highly recommend it because integrating peer feedback in writing retreats for novice writers can be an effective way to improve their writing skills and build confidence in their abilities, gain new perspectives on their writing, build relationships with other writers. And finally, for all universities, I also call upon the need to provide safe space and time specifically for writing through initiation of writers' retreats. And thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Yara. That was another great presentation in today's webinar. You highlighted the importance of peer feedback in publishing, which is really great. Do we have any questions from the audience? Yes, Nashwa?
Thank you, Dr. Yara, for this outstanding speech.
Thank you.
Okay, you talked about the challenges of writing for publication, right?
Yeah.
And one of these challenges are the emotional barriers. Then you suggested the writing retreat model to overcome these problems or obstacles. Well, my question is how to get rid of those emotional barriers using the writing retreat model? And thank you.
Thank you so much for your question. I think during my PhD that I got so much support from my colleagues, and Dr. Sihem will agree with me about this. So we always was like struggling and supporting each other, like emotionally, like when we always like feel demotivated to work in our work, nobody will feel like what are you feeling unless they are going through the same stage like you. So as a doctoral researcher, I was like sometimes I feel like demotivated and hesitant to work on my PhD, and I feel I'm not enough and I'm not competent enough in writing research articles. But whenever I talk to my peers, whenever I listen to their worries and concerns as well and share our experiences, this is very helpful and supportive. So always, I don't recommend you keep isolated, because I know that academia is a very isolating journey. So I don't agree with keep isolating yourself from all the other people. You have to, even after you finish your PhD, you have to always like attend meetings and webinars like this and share, and don't feel like hesitant, or don't feel like hesitant to share your concerns. You are still early academic researcher and you're still learning, and never ever feel shy from sharing your weaknesses, from sharing your doubts. And this will help very, very much. Thank you.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mustafa?
Yes, thank you very much, Yara, for the great presentation. This takes me back to the time we were doing the PhD and the many, many retreats we had to go through in New York. I'm trying to do a writing retreat with I'm supervising 4 MA students, and I'm trying to help them progress with their writing. And I suggested doing some writing retreats online during the holiday, so the spring holiday. What tools would you recommend to do online writing retreats? And particularly like any tools recommend for writing retreats and feedback?
I would recommend any collaborative tools like Google Docs, wikis, anything that students can or the participants can feel comfortable sharing their documents with other people just for reviewing and commenting. This is the only thing that you need to focus on, that they can share the document with other people, and we can make the sharing only specific to one person or to multiple contributors or multiple editors. So any collaborative tools like Google Docs, wikis, so it can be really helpful, I think. From my own experience as well, and during my PhD, it was really helpful, and I'm still using these collaborative tools in everything, actually.
Yeah, thank you, Yara.
Welcome.
Right, thank you again, Yara, for your presentation and for answering the questions of our audience. Thank you so much. So now I move the floor to Dr. Sihem Salem and Dr. Hanan Kichou to close the webinar.
Yes, Dr. Hanan is here. You can go.
You start first, Sihem. You started first, and you start first. Go ahead.
Okay, so I've just got a few words to say. It was really very beneficial and impressive webinar for all of us. We really learned a lot from our brilliant speakers who've given great presentations. Thanks all for sharing with us your experiences and giving us suggestions that we would hopefully and definitely use them and take them into consideration in our future endeavors. Thanks for the attendees as well. Thanks all for your questions, and yeah, that's all, I guess.
Thank you so much, Sihem. So first of all, I'd like to acknowledge the Democratic Arabic Center and Dr. Karim Aish. A special thank you also goes to our speakers today who honored us with their presence, Professor Nadia Idri. It was an honor to have you with us today, Dr. Salim Bouhrar.
Thank you, the honor is mine.
Yeah, Dr. Mustafa Amrat, it was amazing meeting you today, though virtually, Mustafa.
Thank you.
Dr. Yara Shukri and Dr. Hana Bohlela, I think. It was nice to meet you guys today. And of course, a special thank you to the host and the moderator of today's webinar, Dr. Amira Benabdelkader. Great to see you, Amira, for the second time. And
Good
of
to
course,
see you too and to collaborate with you.
thank you, Amira. The pleasure is all mine. And also a big thank you to my friend and colleague, Sihem, Dr. Sihem Salem. Thank you so much, Sihem. And can't wait to working together again in part 2 of the webinar. So, and to thank you also to the audience, everybody who attended the event. And see you next time. Thank you so much. We still have part 2 of the webinar, so stay tuned. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hanan.
Okay.
Bye,
Thank you.
everyone.
Bye. Take
Bye
care.
for now. Bye.
Bye-bye. Have a great evening, everyone.
You too.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.